And joining me now is Senator Jim Inhofe, Republican from Oklahoma and ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Now, so we've heard repeatedly from the Obama administration that there will be no boots on the ground, no U.S. combat troops in this operation. Yet General Dempsey appeared to leave the door open to, at the very least, recommend ground troops, U.S. ground troops in the future. How did you interpret that moment?
Well, first of all, the president's just flat not telling the truth. We already have boots on the ground there. He knows we're going to have boots on the ground. Let's just go ahead and face it and admit we're in a war, and you just don't win a war unless you're out there fighting. I did ask the question, and I hope that you took note of that. A lot of people did, and that is, if we have guys doing air missions over and they're shot down, are we going to have troops down there to save these guys? And he said, yes, we will. So I think he made it very clear that the president is just making that statement for political purposes.
You asked in another comment you made today, in your opening statement, you asked, what does a defeated or destroyed ISIL or ISIS look like? Did you get a satisfactory answer to that question?
No, not as, I'm a little more blunt than most people. I would have preferred to say just complete annihilation is what it would look like. And we didn't get that. It was left room for, depending on the other countries and their participation in some things. So I didn't think that was as direct an answer as I would like. I have to say this, though. I think that Secretary Hagel did a better job this time. He always does a better job when John Kerry's not hanging around.
Well, speaking of Secretary Hagel, during the hearing he was asked what kind of message Congress would be sending if it does not ultimately approve the president's request for $500 million to train moderate Syrian rebels, as well as to give the Defense Department permission to train them. Here is how Secretary Hagel responded.
That message would be very, very seriously misunderstood and misinterpreted by our allies, our friends, our partners around the world, and our adversaries. If the Congress would not agree to that request, it'd be a pretty devastating message it would send to the world.
Pretty devastating message. He said, I don't know if it would be misunderstanding, quite frankly. I think the enemy and our allies would understand it quite perfectly that the U.S. Congress is not willing to put any of its skin in this game. What's your take?
Well, first of all, that's not the message. We have skin in the game already. I think every time the president makes a request for money, when you look at it real carefully, it ends up he's got his other agenda in it, and I just don't trust him to come out and say, this specifically is what it's for, and that is what we're supposed to be doing on the Senate Armed Services Committee. So, and he was not specific as to what it would be spent for. So we want to see a plan. Look, here's the problem with the president. He doesn't have a strategy. He's never had a strategy in the Middle East. He doesn't have a strategy on ISIS. And you've got to have a strategy as to what you're going to try to do. Well, of course, that's what the hearing was all about. But what took place today should have been in our committee hearing, where we could look and see what is it going to take to defeat this war out there when we are threatened. And by the way, I have to say this, I'm really proud of the American people who finally understand that ISIS is actually a threat to our homeland. And I've recently, as you well know, there have been in the last week 2 polls that show that 70% of the people understand.
All right, Senator Jim Inhofe, Republican of Oklahoma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jake.